Money is not what you think it is. The world has been taught to worship it, chase it, sacrifice entire lives to accumulate it. But money itself is never the prize. Money is the smoke, not the fire. It is the surface of the water, not the current beneath. And if you want to understand how the elites bend entire societies to their will, you must first accept one thing. They do not see money the way you do. For the common person, money is survival, comfort, and status. For the elite, money is psychology. It is a lever, a tool to shape decisions, to pull strings so invisible you don't even know you're moving. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote centuries ago that rulers should never confuse appearances with power. The richest king can be overthrown if he mistakes gold for loyalty. True power comes from understanding what money does to the human mind, and then using that knowledge to trap, tempt, and control. Today, nothing has changed. The modern elite, the billionaires, the financial dynasties, the hidden empires, they play by rules you were never taught. Rules designed not to make you rich, but to keep you running in circles while they pull further ahead. That is why you must learn the 7 dark money truths. These are the principles the powerful whisper about in their private halls, but never want you to understand. Because once you see money through their lens, you can never unsee it. You stop chasing illusions and start studying the architecture of control. Let us begin. Dark truth 1. Money is never the goal, only the bait. Look closely at how the world is structured. Every paycheck, every prize, every promise of financial freedom is not designed to liberate you, but to bind you. The elites understand that money works best not when it is held, but when it is dangled. Employees stay loyal, not because they love the company, but because of the bonus at the end of the year. Students bury themselves in debt-chasing degrees because they were told it would lead to a high-paying job. Entire populations accept inflation, taxation, and debt slavery because the system keeps whispering, "Work harder. Tomorrow, you'll be rewarded." But that tomorrow almost never comes. This is the trick. Elites don't have to buy your loyalty outright. They keep you running with the illusion of almost there, like a donkey chasing a carrot tied to its own neck. You move, you sweat, you build, but the prize is never yours. Machiavelli would see this clearly. He knew rulers should never give too much too quickly. Generosity breeds independence. Restraint breeds dependency. That is why modern systems of power are built on rewards delayed, scattered, and uncertain. The chase becomes addictive. Consider corporate life. The CEO does not have to convince you that your work has purpose. He only has to convince you that if you sacrifice now, a raise, a title, or a promotion is around the corner. By the time you realize the corner keeps moving, you've already given away decades of your life. The rich know this game well. They don't chase bonuses, they design them. They don't pray for raises, they write the checks. They understand that money in your hand is dangerous because it gives you choice. But money out of reach, that gives them control. So the first dark truth is this: money is never the goal, it is the bait. And if you are chasing bait, you are already trapped in someone else's game. Dark truth 2, visibility is a trap. Society teaches you to flaunt your wealth. The watches, the cars, the Instagram posts. Show the world you're successful. Prove it with glitter and noise. But the elites know this is the most dangerous move of all. Because visibility is exposure. And exposure is vulnerability. When you show the world exactly what you have, you also show them what you lack. You show predators where to strike, competitors where to measure, and authorities where to tax. The powerful understand that the loudest man in the room is rarely the one in control. True control moves in silence. Think of the dynasties that have lasted for centuries. The families whose names you barely hear, but whose fingerprints are on every major financial decision. They do not post their bank statements. They do not parade on magazine covers. They operate like shadows, untraceable, unmeasurable, unchallenged. Contrast this with the newly rich. The moment someone tastes wealth, they buy the symbols of status. They want to be seen, admired, validated. But Machiavelli would laugh at this. He would remind you, admiration invites envy, envy breeds plots, and plots destroy empires. A king who flaunts his gold soon finds daggers in the dark. Even in modern life, the lesson stands. Look at the self-made millionaire who can't resist showing his cars online. He attracts attention, yes, but also lawsuits, thieves, and regulators. His power shrinks because everyone can calculate his worth. He has become predictable, and predictability is weakness. The elite understand the opposite. The less people know about your wealth, the more dangerous you become. Mystery multiplies fear. Ambiguity breeds caution. When no one can measure your power, they overestimate it, and that overestimation protects you more than any display ever could. This is why the second dark truth is simple. Visibility is a trap. The strong accumulate quietly, structure their wealth in silence, and let others guess. Let them underestimate, let them doubt. A visible fortune is a fragile fortune, but an invisible one? That is untouchable. The poor chase money as if it were salvation. The elites use it as bait. The poor display what little they have to prove their worth. The elites conceal what they hold to magnify their power. And so, the game continues. Century after century, the same principles dressed in new disguises. You were taught to worship the surface, but Machiavelli would tell you, look deeper. Behind the paychecks, behind the flexing, behind the public theater, lies the true machinery of control. And if you want to escape being controlled, you must learn each of these dark truths. The next truth will take us further into the architecture of power, not about wealth on paper, but about the hidden flows that decide who rises and who falls. Dark truth 3. Control flows, not assets. The masses believe power comes from possession. The house, the land, the gold bars stacked in vaults. But Machiavelli would smirk at this illusion. He understood centuries ago that true rulers do not obsess over what they own. They obsess over what they can control. Ownership is finite. A palace can burn, a vault can be robbed, but control over a flow of money, of goods, of information outlives every single possession. Whoever dictates the flow dictates the game. Look at the most powerful empires in history. Rome did not thrive because it hoarded treasure. Rome thrived because it controlled the trade routes, the arteries through which wealth circulated. As long as Rome commanded the flows of grain, metals, and soldiers, it did not matter who else had treasure. Rome could starve its enemies or flood its allies. Power lived in the flows. The same is true today. The richest corporations are not the ones that own the most physical assets. Consider Uber. It doesn't own the cars. Airbnb doesn't own the hotels. Amazon doesn't manufacture most of the goods it sells. Their power lies in controlling the flow of rides, of rooms, of commerce. You can destroy a single car, shut down a single hotel, bankrupt a single seller. But you cannot touch the network unless you control the flow itself. This is why financial dynasties invest less in tangible assets and more in gateways, banks, payment processors, digital platforms, energy grids, not glamorous, not flashy, but indispensable. If you drink water, someone controls the pipes. If you pay with a card, someone controls the payment rails. If you open your phone, someone controls the data traffic. That is where the real power hides. The poor man chases assets to brag. The elite designs flows to rule. Machiavelli would phrase it like this: it is better to control the path to the throne than to sit on it, because the man who controls the road decides who may rise and who must fall. Now look at your own life. Do you merely own, or do you control? You may own a skill, but do you control the market for that skill? You may own a small business, but do you control the customer's flow of attention? Until you learn to design flows, you will always be replaceable. The third dark truth is harsh but simple. Control flows, not assets. The rich know assets are fragile. Flows are eternal. Dark truth 4. Dependency is the real currency. Most people believe money buys loyalty. They think if they pay well enough, others will stay loyal. But Machiavelli's eyes cut deeper. He knew that loyalty purchased with coin is fragile. True loyalty comes only from dependence. A soldier paid in gold may fight bravely, but only until the enemy offers more. A servant fed richly may serve loyally, but only until another lord feeds him better. But a man whose very survival depends on your system, that man cannot betray you, because betrayal means self-destruction. The elites of today have perfected this art. They do not simply pay people, they build ecosystems where leaving feels impossible. Tech companies design addictive platforms where businesses cannot afford to leave because all their customers are inside. Governments create welfare systems that keep citizens dependent, unable to imagine survival outside the state. Corporations provide just enough benefits, health insurance, retirement plans, stock options, so that employees fear walking away more than they hate staying. Dependency is a prison with invisible walls. Think of the farmer bound by debt. He may resent the bank, but he still works day and night because leaving means losing the land his family has tilled for generations. Think of the influencer chained to algorithms. He may complain about shadow bans, but he cannot quit the platform because his fame and income vanish the moment he leaves. Dependency keeps them obedient. Machiavelli would remind us that the ruler who feeds his people does not need to command them. They will obey on their own, because hunger is a sharper weapon than any sword. The one who controls the food always controls the lion. This is why elites invest in systems of dependence. They don't need to threaten. They don't even need to argue. When people's livelihoods orbit your financial gravity, they censor themselves before you speak. They obey without calling it obedience. They call it compromise. Dependency is stronger than fear. Fear fades with courage. Greed fades with satisfaction. But dependency lingers because it is woven into survival. The worker convinces himself he is free while secretly bound. The citizen believes he is empowered while quietly controlled. Now, ask yourself, are you building independence? Or are you decorating your cage? Do you rely on a single paycheck? A single platform? A single client? If so, you are not wealthy. You are dependent, and the one who feeds you owns you. The fourth dark truth is this: dependency is the real currency. The elites know that controlling dependence is far more valuable than giving money. Money buys moments. Dependency buys lifetimes. Dark truth 5. Fear of loss is stronger than desire for gain. The human mind is not rational. It is wired for survival, not logic. And survival is not about gaining more, it is about avoiding loss. The elites know this better than anyone. They understand that fear of losing something you already have is a stronger motivator than the hope of gaining something new. Psychologists today call it loss aversion. Machiavelli knew it centuries ago. He wrote that men will sooner forgive the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance. Why? Because loss cuts deeper than death. Death belongs to fate. Loss feels like theft. Look at how markets are designed. Investors may ignore dozens of opportunities for profit, but they will obsess over a single crash. A trader can make a fortune for 10 years, but one devastating loss will paralyze him forever. The elites weaponize this instinct. They manufacture volatility, fear, and crises, knowing that terrified people will cling to security even if it costs them everything else. Consider insurance companies. They don't sell policies by promising wealth. They sell them by whispering fear. What if your house burns? What if your child falls sick? What if your car crashes? You don't buy insurance to gain, you buy it to avoid losing. Billions flow every year because people are terrified of what might be taken from them. Governments play the same trick. They warn of chaos, terrorism, collapse, then offer safety at the price of freedom. Citizens trade liberty for the illusion of security because fear of loss overrides desire for independence, and the elites smile because every freedom surrendered is power consolidated. Even in personal life, the same principle rules. Employees do not stay in miserable jobs because they love them. They stay because they fear losing stability. Couples remain in toxic relationships not because they are fulfilled, but because they fear losing comfort, status, or reputation. Loss is the invisible chain that keeps people in cages they could leave at any time. Machiavelli would remind you, the ruler who wishes to control must not only give rewards, but also create fear of their removal. A prince who grants land, then threatens to take it away, holds more power than one who simply gives endlessly. Because once someone tastes possession, the idea of losing it terrifies them more than hunger ever did. The wealthy design entire systems around this truth. Free trials that hook you, then warn what you'll lose when the trial ends. Social media platforms that threaten invisibility if you stop posting. Banks that dangle credit, then keep you enslaved to avoid losing the lifestyle you built with borrowed money. The fifth dark truth is this: fear of loss is stronger than desire for gain. And until you master this principle, you will always be manipulated by it. Dark truth 6. Loyalty is always conditional. The masses romanticize loyalty. They believe it is absolute, permanent, almost sacred. But Machiavelli knew this was childish. He wrote bluntly that a ruler should never rely on loyalty because men are fickle, self-interested, and driven by circumstances. The elites today operate by the same creed. All loyalty is conditional. A business partner is loyal as long as profits flow. A citizen is loyal as long as bread is on the table. An employee is loyal as long as the paycheck arrives on time. Even family loyalty bends when inheritance, pride, or survival is at stake. History is littered with brothers who murdered each other for thrones, generals who betrayed kings for gold, advisors who defected the moment the winds changed. Modern life is no different. A brand may believe its customers are loyal, but one cheaper competitor and loyalty evaporates. Politicians may believe their voters are loyal, but one scandal and loyalty flips. Companies may believe their workers are loyal, but one offer with better benefits exposes the truth. Loyalty is never absolute, it is always conditional. The elites exploit this by never assuming loyalty is guaranteed. Instead, they create conditions that constantly reinforce it. They build dependency, as we saw earlier. They play on fear of loss. They reward selectively, punish selectively, and constantly remind their followers what they stand to lose if they stray. Think of feudal lords. They did not trust their knights simply because of oaths. They gave them land, wives, privileges, but always with the unspoken threat that these could be revoked. Think of modern corporations. They don't just pay salaries. They tie employees with stock options that only mature years later, forcing loyalty to stretch. Even relationships work this way. Love is praised as unconditional, but in reality, it depends on respect, attraction, and benefit. Remove those, and loyalty collapses. Machiavelli would call it hypocrisy to pretend otherwise. He would tell you that understanding the conditional nature of loyalty is the first step toward maintaining it. This is why the powerful rarely rely on promises of fidelity. They rely on systems of control. The mafia boss knows his men will not stay loyal forever, so he ensures they are complicit in crimes together, creating mutual risk. The political leader knows voters are fickle, so he keeps feeding them with promises and threats, never letting them rest secure. The sixth dark truth is merciless. Loyalty is always conditional. To believe otherwise is to walk blindfolded into betrayal. The elites never trust devotion on its own. They design structures where betrayal costs more than obedience. And that, Machiavelli would say, is the only loyalty worth counting on. Dark truth 7. Silence is the ultimate weapon. Words can build empires, but silence can crush them. The elites understand this instinctively. The less you reveal, the more others project. A rumor whispered in silence grows louder than any speech. A pause in action sparks more fear than a declaration of war. Machiavelli himself warned rulers against excessive promises and explanations. The more you speak, the more you expose. The more you explain, the more you bind yourself to your own words. Silence leaves room for imagination, and imagination breeds power. Look at how billionaires move. One vague tweet about a currency can send markets into frenzy. One pause in investment can terrify competitors. They don't have to speak in paragraphs. Sometimes, a single unfinished sentence, or better yet, total silence, changes everything. Consider negotiations. The inexperienced man rushes to fill the silence, revealing his true desires, his limits, his weakness. The seasoned manipulator lets silence hang heavy, forcing the other side to speak, to reveal, to beg for reassurance. Silence becomes a vacuum that others rush to fill, handing power to the one who can remain still. History proves the same. During Cold War standoffs, silence from leaders created paralyzing uncertainty. Nations spent billions preparing for attacks that never came, because silence from the opponent amplified paranoia. Wars have been avoided and started by silence more than speeches. Even in daily life, the principle stands. The boss who says nothing after you present your work makes you sweat more than the boss who criticizes openly. The partner who withdraws into silence unsettles you more than the one who shouts. The politician who avoids clear statements lets the crowd project their hopes onto him. Silence multiplies influence because people hate not knowing. The rich know this. They don't explain their wealth. They don't defend their decisions. They let speculation grow because speculation magnifies myth. They know words invite scrutiny. Silence invites legend. The seventh dark truth is this: silence is the ultimate weapon. Noise makes you predictable. Silence makes you untouchable. Now we return to the full architecture of control. The seven truths, when isolated, seem like tricks, but together they form a philosophy of money darker and sharper than anything you were taught. Let us put them in order. 1. Money is never the goal, only the bait. The system keeps you running after illusions, addicted to promises, while the real prize is withheld. 2. Visibility is a trap. The moment you display your fortune, you invite enemies, regulators, and predators. True wealth thrives in shadows. 3. Control flows, not assets. Ownership is fragile. Flows of goods, of data, of money are eternal. Whoever controls the pipeline controls the empire. 4. Dependency is the real currency. Loyalty bought with coin fades. Dependency, forged by systems of survival, endures. 5. Fear of loss is stronger than desire for gain. People cling harder to what they already have than to what they might gain. Exploit this, and you control their every move. 6. Loyalty is always conditional. Never trust promises. Design conditions where betrayal costs more than obedience. 7. Silence is the ultimate weapon. Say less, reveal less, and watch your power multiply in the imaginations of others. Each of these truths alone is potent. Together, they explain why dynasties endure while individuals fall. They reveal why families you have never heard of quietly own more than the billionaires you idolize. They show why entire populations can be controlled without chains, without armies, without whips, simply with psychology, money, and silence. Machiavelli's wisdom runs through all of them. He taught that men are weak, self-interested, and predictable. The elites have taken this to heart, turning it into a modern science. They don't need you to think critically. They only need you to obey instincts you cannot resist. The instinct to chase bait, the instinct to show off, the instinct to cling to what you own, the instinct to depend on safety, the instinct to fear loss, the instinct to promise loyalty, the instinct to fill silence. The game is old, but the players are new. The same tricks that controlled subjects in Florence control citizens in New York, London, Beijing. The masks change, but the truths remain eternal. What this means for you? You can respond in two ways. The first is denial. You can cling to illusions, insisting that loyalty is eternal, that wealth is about visibility, that people are rational, that money itself is power. If so, you will remain a pawn in someone else's empire, chasing carrots that were never meant for you. The second is awakening. To see money as the elite, see it not as treasure, but as a lever. To stop asking, "How much do I own?" and start asking, What flows do I control? To stop seeking loyalty and start designing dependence. To stop craving applause and start cultivating silence. Machiavelli would not tell you to be moral. He would tell you to be effective. He would not urge you to be admired. He would urge you to be feared, respected, or at the very least, untouchable. If you want to play their game, you must abandon the illusions you were taught. Understand that the surface is always a lie. Wealth is not gold. Wealth is control, and control is psychological before it is financial. The elites will never tell you these truths. Why would they? A population that understands the bait will stop chasing it. A citizen who sees dependency as a cage may try to break free. A worker who understands loyalty as conditional may no longer waste his life for promises. That is why these principles are hidden in shadows, spoken only in whispers. That is why Machiavelli's teachings remain relevant after 500 years. The psychology of power does not expire. So remember them well. Bait, invisibility, flows, dependency, fear, conditions, silence. 7 truths that shape the world you live in. 7 weapons used against you every day. 7 secrets you were never meant to see. Now that you know them, the question is simple. Will you remain bait, or will you become the one holding the string?